John Yuka
Hey, John. Good to hear from you.
to Dino, Palmdale Water District.
Welcome. A motion and a second. We'll get that pretty fast. Thank you. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, okay, thank you. A roll call, Madam Secretary.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Then we'll move on to item number 7, consent calendar. We have 2 items. Approve the minutes of February 22nd and approve the quarterly newsletter. And so if there's any questions or comments, now's the time to bring them up. If not, the motion would be in order.
Mr. President, I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
We have a motion in a second. If there's nothing further, Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. In the next item, we'll move on to the Finance Committee. It would be Director Donato, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 8A1, as I consider possible action to accept and file the check registry list for the period of February 15th through February 28th, 2024.
All right, I can hit the highlights.
Go ahead.
Good evening, President Lane and members of the board. So in your board packet on page 16 is the beginning of the checklist for the period mentioned by Director Donato. A couple of highlights. We have a small payment to DWR for the variable costs associated with moving water to the Antelope Valley during the month of January, $352,000. That was to move about 1,600 acre feet for direct treatment and use by our customers during the month of January, significantly down from 2023. As you remember, in 2023, we were still banking quite a bit of water, so there were large bills associated with moving that water. Also, on the first page, we made a payment to International Water Screens for the work that was approved by the board associated with rehabbing the moss screens at the Port Sill Water Treatment Plant. There was on High Desert Water Bank checklist.
It's February 28th. So a motion would be in order.
I move on board order 8A1.
Director Donato, we have a motion. We have a second by
Director Miller, second.
Director Miller, the second. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried.
That
That
concludes.
concludes the report. Okay, thank you, Director Donato. And we'll move on to item number B, Customer Relations and Public Information Committee, and Director Van Dam is the chairman of that committee.
Yes, why don't you go ahead, Matt?
Okay, thank you, Director Van Dam. Good evening again. So on this item, we're going to have Jordan Ray, our lab director, come up and give a presentation on accepting and filing the distribution of the 2023 annual water quality reports for LA County and Kern County. So take it away, Jordan. Do you want this?
All right, good evening, board members. I'm going to give a little summary of the 2023 annual water quality report. So this is for Kern and LA counties. The full reports, they are included in your board packet and they begin on page 23. So some background, the requirements for the annual water quality report We have to do this every year due to the Safe Drinking Water Act amendments of 1996. It requires the agency as a wholesaler to produce and distribute an annual water quality report to its retail customers. The report covers data from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, and it must be completed by April 1st. We have this April 1st deadline as a wholesaler. Our retail customers then use this data to complete their consumer confidence reports, and those are due by July 1st of each year. Specific water quality constituents and the frequency of sampling for each water source are determined by the Vulnerability Assessment and Monitoring Frequency Guidelines, and these are developed by the State Water Resources Control Board. Once the report is completed, hard copies are mailed to the agency's customers, and then some are emailed as requested. It's then made available on our website for easy customer access, and if any public has water quality concerns, I can easily direct them to our website. It's found under the Your Water tab and then Water Quality. And then finally, it's uploaded to the State Water Resources Control Board's Drink portal. All right, so getting into some of the results, we had no coliform treatment technique triggers or E. coli maximum contaminant level violations in our back-to-use samples from the distribution system. 100% of monthly samples met EPA turbidity performance standards. We satisfied the EPA groundwater rule for minimum chlorine residual leaving the clear well, and then this has to be a minimum of 0.5 milligrams per liter. And then all primary and secondary standards were below the established MCLs. Volatile organic compounds and synthetic organic compounds were non-detect for all locations sampled in 2023. And then moving on to some disinfection residual precursors and byproducts. So chlorine, is used as our primary disinfectant. The maximum residual disinfectant level in the distribution system has to be below 4.0, and that's based on a running annual average. So in our Kern County system, we had an average of 1.01, and in the LA County system, it was 1.12. TOC is a precursor, total organic carbon, and there's not a MCL for this contaminant. It's based on a treatment requirement of a percentage reduction. So our treated water, we had an average of 2.0 in both systems, and then the source water averaged 2.9 in Kern County and 3.1 in LA County. And these are fairly similar this year because we were on source water for both counties most of the year. And then finally, bromate, it's a byproduct from using ozone in the system. And the MCL for this is based on a running annual average also, and it's 10 micrograms per liter. The averages are really low for both counties. It was off mainly most of the year. So we had 0.4 in Kern County and then 0.3 in Los Angeles County. And then finally, we have our THM graph. And this is a 5-year running annual average, but you can see towards the end of the graph, 2023, we have a slight uptake throughout the year, but that's due to an increase in the State Water Project allocation. So surface water has higher organic content and it increases the chance for THM formation, but the operations team did a really good job keeping these below the MCL of 80 and then also our AVEC goal of 60. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, good report.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions or comments from?
I do, a good report.
Thank you.
Okay, a motion would be in order to accept and file the annual water quality report for the County of Kern and in Los Angeles County.
I move on board order 881.
Director
Second.
Donato, Director Van Dam, motion second. Okay. Madam Secretary, we get a roll call?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you much.
Thanks, Jordan. Good job.
Even moving right along to High Desert, Water Bank, and that would be Director Donato.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, on item 8C1, the monthly update on High Desert Water Bank with our agency engineer. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, I guess. President Lane, members of the board. Kind of a brief monthly update. You'll see not too much has happened construction-wise on the project, but we have had some good progress on other aspects of the project. Jumping into our executive summary, just there to remind us of the goals of the project, 70,000 acre feet of recharge and recovery capacity, and a 280,000 acre foot of total storage. Agreement with Metropolitan, kind of the key principles of that agreement are shown there, but at a very high level, they agree to pay for all the capital costs of the project. Avek agrees to own, operate, and maintain. And in return for payment of the capital, Met gets first priority rights to all the banking and recovery capacity. I've got our map on the right-hand side. This hasn't changed since last month, but some of the short-term goals on the left have been updated. We hope to close out the turnout contract pretty soon here. The contractor for the recharge basins, Nicholas Construction, will continue their progress on that. They're getting pretty close to finishing that up. Montgomery & Associates, working for Stantec, will finalize the groundwater modeling report. We hope to begin the on-site power design to get the electrical facilities out at the site, or at least the design underway. And then, if you recall, the board authorized staff to get the next drilling package out to bid. So we'll get that out to bid pretty soon. We're putting some final touches on that, and then that'll go out to bid. So we hope within the next 3 months that we'd return to the board for an action to award that contract to actually drill those wells to a drilling contractor. Currently, there's no banking going on at the High Desert Water Bank. I'm just waiting on word from Metropolitan as to if they've got water to store there. President Lane requested some aerial photos at the last meeting with some numbers or labels, I guess, on each of the basins. So our construction management team took this nice drone photo, and you can see that we've got them labeled here. So Basin 6, this is the first one we were able to recharge in last year. Then we got Basin 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You can see this is 280th Street here. That's the eastern boundary of the project. Avenue A is the northern boundary. And then 290th kind of bisects the property on the, sort of in the middle, but this is on the west here. It's a little sliver of the California aqueduct that you can see here. And then in what we call our stage 2 area, you can see basins 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27 are labeled. And then above the floodway, you'll see basins 20 and 21. So we're going to zoom in on that area here. So here again, basin 21, basin 20. This is looking towards the west now. And then going from east to west, basin 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27. So hopefully that's helpful in visualizing the site from here in the boardroom and helpful as we talk through the project. Moving into program management, this is work primarily that Kennedy Jenks and their team has been doing, but doing a great job of keeping everybody on task with the project and making sure everybody's aware of their upcoming milestones, deadlines, deliverables, et cetera. Their construction management team is doing a good job of inspecting field work. KJ also reviewed and provided comments on the electrical design proposal, which is one of the action items on the agenda for tonight. They also participated in the treatment study kickoff meeting. You recall we authorized a contract to Stantec to do the treatment study that Metropolitan had requested, and we've already had the kickoff meeting for that, and it went very well. And then they also participated in a recent Southern California Edison offsite power kickoff meeting, so that's underway, and we had a good meeting. I've got a summary of that towards the end of this presentation. Upcoming board decisions on the right-hand side here. Once we wrap up turnout construction, the issuance of the notice of completion. I mentioned already, but the award of the contract for the next drilling package. And then, as I mentioned, on your agenda for tonight is item C here, which is to authorize the on-site power design amendment to Stantec's contract. Section 3 is kind of reserved for the work that Stantec has been doing. Their sub-consultants working on finalizing the groundwater model update report. They're progressing on the well equipping and recovery design package. Next deliverable for that is due in early April. And then, as I mentioned, they participated as well in the SCE offsite power kickoff meeting and led that kickoff meeting for the treatment facility study, which went very well. Moving into our contract summary, you can see all of the contracts that we've entered into for the project, some of the completed ones towards the bottom. Take-home message for me is the percent of contracts paid as we think about where we're at in the progress for each of those. But everything's looking very good. You can see CM is about 70% of what we've authorized to date, just for those, the turnout and the recharge basins package. So we're tracking very well. Of course, you know, the turnout's completed and the recharge package is probably closer to 80% complete. All of the design packages are tracking well on or under budget, so that's all looking good as well. This is a summary of our activity in the capital program account. You can see the various months shown there. I've added the last two here, the payments in February, as well as the most recent Metropolitan deposit that came in the beginning of the month. So the current account balance in that account is $6.1 million. Metropolitan has contributed almost $90 million to the project so far. And we have one outstanding invoice to Met for just over $700,000, which is due towards the end of the month. I know Earl and Tien from Kennedy Jenks Construction Management Team are here today. I'm going to take this slide, though. The wet weather that we've had over the last couple months has slowed progress a little bit. Plus, as you recall from the last meeting, maybe Nicholas Construction was waiting on the delivery of a 72-inch valve that was anticipated to land in February. I'm happy to report that that is on site, and so they're gearing up as the site dries out to get back into full swing out there. And we'll get a schedule update from them pretty soon, but they're anticipated to hit it pretty hard in the months of March, April, and May. So we should be getting pretty close to wrapping that up over the next 3 months. But just looking here, you can see of course, the stage 1 basins and pipelines are all completed. Stage 2 pipeline also completed. So they really just got work on the finalizing the recharge basins, the installation of those valves, and the additional turnouts to the push-up berm area. Second to last slide for the monthly update here. This is kind of a summary of the SCE kickoff meeting. That occurred on February 21st. It was a good meeting. A lot of folks from SCE. They've got a lot of folks in different areas, from procurement to design to environmental to cost estimating to rights acquisition. All those folks were involved in the call to talk about the project. It was just kind of an introductory call, so we got to meet their team. They got to meet our team. They went through an overview of the project as a whole, the High Desert Water Bank project, and why the power needs to be brought to there. A high-level description of the work that they have to do as far as procuring materials, installing poles and cable, and went through a schedule. Good news there is that the schedule is still holding with what we anticipated, but they said that the big lead time item is the procurement of the transformers, which they indicated has a 131-week lead time. So that's a long lead item. They assured us that just after that kickoff meeting, they were getting into they were going to procure those right off the bat, so that's not a schedule constraint. And while they complete the rest of the design work, so it was a good meeting. They're following up with a site visit for the site that's anticipated to occur next month, I believe. So they've been very communicative so far. So we'll make sure we stay on and make sure that this stays on track and on schedule. So that wraps up the report. The action item on the list here, which is the next item up on the agenda for tonight, is for the amendment to Stantec's design contract to do the on-site electrical distribution facilities. And so that wraps up the monthly update report. Be happy to answer any questions on that before we move on to the action item.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, we'll continue.
All right, thank you.
Let me start off with a question on this next item.
Sure.
And you can answer it, or Matt, or whoever from AVAC, but why should that be an amendment versus going out for, bid?
Yeah, we, we discussed this a little bit the last board meeting when we authorized the treatment facility study. Having one firm on this project from the very beginning was always the intent. The competitive process that we did for the project happened at the very beginning when we looked at several firms. They established their rate sheets on that initial proposal as part of the competitive process. And so the idea has been to add tasks to that original contract as we go, while holding those original rates that were part of the competitive process in the beginning. So with that, I feel very strongly that this design work here would, even if we were to go out to bid, not only would that delay the project by spending that time and effort going out to bid, I believe that other firms that would propose on this project would have much higher fees, since they would have a lot of effort to get up to speed on to where we're at right now.
No, I'm not sure everybody would agree with that, but we're talking about getting up to speed. This is something that probably should have been started, months earlier, so it wouldn't be a delay. But I think a lot of people wouldn't agree with that, Justin. But Matt, have any comments on that?
I would concur with Justin, and I think it is probably understated about the level of effort that it would take for a new firm to get up to speed on the project. Just what the intent of the project is, the goals of the project, and getting the background on the well locations and the design and intent of the wells. So that would be additional cost and expense for Metropolitan on the project to get another firm.
But again, this is speculation. We do not know.
Yeah.
We're looking at the reasons why we should, not we're looking at maybe what the economics, may be. So it's purely, one-sided, this hearing.
Yeah, and if it provides a little bit of comfort to you, we did share the proposal and the fee schedule with Metropolitan staff to make sure we got their concurrence on what was being proposed by Stantec for the High Desert Water Bank. And we got some email communication that shows that they are supportive of the fee schedule and the scope.
But no input from other engineers.
No other proposers on the project, but we did have.
That's the point.
Yeah, and but
What we're hearing is all one-sided, Matt.
Another checks and balances that we provide in the process is Kennedy Jenks, as the program manager, looking out for AVAC's interest. They provided input and comments to the proposal. And you'll see in Justin's presentation, it netted a decrease in the proposal from Stantec. The original proposal was in the $645,000 range. And through feedback and comments from Kennedy Jenks and AVAC staff, we got the fee down to 609.
So we continue on, we do another, want to make that philosophy that we're hearing right now, how long is that going to continue? Well, they're familiar with it. Let's go ahead and just continue with them.
Well, if we do another project like this, we can always revisit the approach and philosophy.
But everything we're doing with the wells, there'll be a lot of additional work that's going to have to be done. At some point, we need to get input and talk to other engineers.
Yeah.
Because what I've seen, recently, we tried to get information from Stantec, and it wasn't acceptable. We finally did get acceptable in some of those change orders we had.
Yeah.
I have a question and comment. When our engineers came back with the report, you took this to MWD and went thoroughly through it with them, and they approved the expenditure because they're the ones ultimately paying the $609,000.
Correct.
Okay, so I would, if they approve this, really all we're doing is overseeing, and they also know what the cost of doing business is in today's
market,
atmosphere, basically. So, we should kind of, I believe we should support this when, tonight. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah.
We probably should, Frank, but we're the feet on the ground and have ultimate responsibility. we want to come back and say, well, you should have did this, you should have that. And I'm just saying, it's not done how it should be.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that,
Yeah, where we're at right now, we probably have to go forward.
well, and they need to get this done now. I mean,
Yeah, we do.
yeah.
But in the future, we're gonna be talking about the same thing a year from now. We may have a substantial amendment. We'll have the same reasoning. These people are familiar with it, and maybe that's probably familiar, they're familiar, but we don't know what another engineering firm, this is just different than my experience when we dealt with oil engineering.
Does Santec, we know, I'm assuming Santec, Kenny Jenks, KJ both have done work with Met anyway, so I don't think they would.
Yeah, Met, they've made comments to both Justin and I that they're very familiar with Stantec and comfortable with the work product that they produce and have a lot of confidence in their ability to perform this work.
And that's good, Matt, but they're relying upon us too, to make sure that we're doing the correct thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's more of a philosophy or approach to delivering the project. And if, next project we do, maybe that's something we need to have a discussion on early on is what is going to be the approach and hiring the engineer and getting fee schedule and estimates from the engineer. But
Since they know it verbatim, we should get a 25% discount.
well, we got a little discount.
Okay, that, my question's answered. So
Okay.
We'll go ahead and continue.
Okay, thank you.
I back George's comments that, I'm a firm believer going to the bid is the best way in most cases, but in this case, it looks like it wouldn't be the best.
Yeah.
Interest for everybody.
I agree with you guys. The best value and product is going to bid, but we're recommending this approach for where we're at in the project right now.
All right. So the design, as you probably know from our previous conversations, but the design and construction of these on-site power facilities. So this is the interior network of power, not the SCE that's coming from the substation 10 miles away. The plan has been to design and construct these facilities concurrently with other construction and design projects. So as the recharge basins are completed and additional wells are drilled, this package will be designed and constructed alongside of that. The current schedule allows 1 year for design of this project and then 2 years for construction. So other than the SCE offsite power facilities, this really is one of the primary schedule drivers to completion of the High Desert Water Bank project. One of the reasons it's, somewhat urgent to move forward with now.
1 year, that seems excessive.
It's a lot of work. I mean, Joe Long is here, can speak to the level of effort that's required and why it's anticipated to take so long. Come up to the podium. Go to the microphone.
There's multiple pieces that have to happen on this design. First of all, we have to lay it all out. So we've worked on through that as part of our other work. So that layout, the initial layout is done. Now each pole has to actually be designed because we're in a wind loading area and a fire safe area. So we still have to do all of that work. Each pole actually gets a structural analysis done as required by the CPUC. And then we have to also design to the CPUC design standards as we go forward. So there's probably going to be on the order of 125 to 130 sheets altogether and all the calculations that support all of that work. So it takes about a year to do that. And that's actually an aggressive schedule.
Matt, do you agree that the year is reasonable?
Yes. Yeah, we reviewed the scope of work and the schedule they outlaid.
It seems excessive, but anyway.
Yeah.
They're the ones doing it.
Yeah.
Justin, remind us how long it's going to take for Southern California Edison to get the power over there.
Yeah, SCE anticipated about 40 months, I want to say, from the beginning. So some of that is rights, but a lot of that is the design and construction work.
That's what, 10 miles?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's right. So putting that on a timeline here, this is kind of new. I haven't shared this with the board previously, but you can see some of where we've been kind of since we started that project and where we're going. But right here in late 2019 is when we entered the agreement with Metropolitan for the project. We got Stantec on board in early 2020 through the competitive process I mentioned previously. The first 4 wells were completed, or now construction began 2022, recharge construction as well. I'm going to fast forward on this, be happy to share this with you or spend more time. But right here is where we're at, early 2024. You can see the design of this package going right into early 25, and then the construction of that going right here to the tail end. This top arrow here, this is the SCE transmission line construction. So you can see that there's not a long lag here between when we anticipate these facilities to be completed versus when Edison is going to be completed. So we need to get started on this. The last thing that anybody wants is for Edison to be done and us still working on stuff, knowing that, Edison took so long from the beginning. So
Justin, you can probably, in a drought, we could probably get by with Edison, with generators, but we can't get by without this work, generators, very easily.
Yeah, I mean, this
So
is going to...
when would the earliest we could extract water for Metropolitan Water Agency?
So we need Edison if we want to use any more.
Without Edison.
We can only support 2 wells with the current distribution system that's out there. So any more than that would require generators to pump more than those first couple of wells.
So everything
That's right,
with the
Joe.
Edison and Sandeck, when could we have this in operation approximately?
Say that one more time. If it was
When could we have this water bank in operation so we could extract water from there approximately?
Well, we need the power from Edison to get the full capacity.
Including that.
So when will it be done when Edison is completed? Yeah, so mid 2027.
When everything's completed.
Yeah, mid 2027. Yeah. Sorry if I didn't understand that first go. So we've talked about quite a bit of this already, but Stantec did provide their proposal to us. It's going to design all of the power infrastructure necessary to bring power to each of the 27 wells, the control building, the aqueduct turnout, the future treatment facility. And it includes the development of, several design deliverables along the way for input and review and comment from Avek and Kennedy Jenks and Metropolitan Water District. The proposal also includes bidding support. Once it's all done, we put this out to bid and the contractors have questions on the design or anything that requires an addendum. It also includes a little bit of funds for that as well. As I mentioned, timeframe for completion is about a year, looking at hopefully March to February of next year. Bidding would commence shortly thereafter, and then construction for the following 2 years into early 2027. As Matt mentioned, the budget that was established when Metropolitan went to their board about a year and a half ago was about $650,000. Stantec's initial proposal came in $643,000 through review and comment by Kennedy Jenks and Avek staff. That final proposal came in at just under 610, 609,896. As Matt mentioned, this was provided to Metropolitan Water District for review. They looked at it. They thought it looked good. They support this. So with that, the High Desert Water Bank Committee, Metropolitan, and AVAC staff would recommend approving the amendment to Stantec's contract for $609,896.60.
I have a question.
Yes.
This power, is it strictly dedicated to the High Desert Water Bank, or is it going to be also shared with public entities to have access to the power?
The power lines that Stantec is designing here is strictly for the High Desert Water Bank project. The transmission line that Edison is bringing in for 10 miles, that is an Edison facility. They can hook their customers up to that facility.
Which means that the barren land that doesn't have power is going to have power.
Yeah.
Are they going to use existing right-of-ways as well?
They're looking at that right now. They're doing all their rights checks to see what they have access to and what they might need to acquire.
Okay. Let's say they can't. So let's say that, they have to use combination, for some of these, is that gonna raise the price?
Not for us or Metropolitan. That transmission line is,
No, you said two things there. Said not for us, but Metropolitan what?
or Metropolitan. I should have just said
That's-
Metropolitan.
okay,
Yeah, it will not raise the cost for Metropolitan.
So
Yeah.
that deal, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the offsite power is what they call standard facilities, and that's why they can connect other customers to it. That's also why they're footing the bill for the $80 million roughly that it costs. Yeah.
Okay. Should we have a board order?
But yeah, board order, page,
Okay,
be in order.
I'll move on 8C2, that we approve, not to exceed, 609,896.
We have a motion by Director Donato,
Director Miller, second.
Director Miller, we have a second. And, Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes,
George Lane.
And abstain. Motion carried.
I have one more comment.
Yeah.
You know, with all this money and all this free sun, why are we moving power? Why can't we just do it in our backyard? That's just want to leave that comment.
Yeah.
But, yes, and this had, I agree it had to be done, but how it was done, I don't agree. And so hopefully we get through this contract and we're not looking at something 6 months or a year from now for another amendment.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's been the approach on this project, so we'll have to have some additional conversations.
Okay, thank you.
And look at that. Yeah, thank
Good
you.
report. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Justin.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Donato. We'll move on to item number E, water projects, and it's Director, you, Director Miller.
Okay, on 8D1 is a consideration possible action on amendment to Kennedy James Engineering and Design for the SIP Phase 2 project. And I'll give that, and I'll end up with Justin.
Yes, exactly. I can save some time and just transfer it to Justin right now.
All right, thank you. All right, good evening again. So just a refresher on the SNP Phase 2 project. I know it's been, talked about for a while now, but back in October of 2020, the board authorized a design contract to Kennedy Jenks to complete the final design for the SNP Phase 2 pipeline and pump station project. Since that time, there's been kind of some starts and stops as, we've pursued grant funding and it's looked favorable and then, it didn't work out. But the task completed to date is they completed some utility potholing, survey, prepared a 30% design drawing package as well as a preliminary design report that accompanied that. And they completed a pump station surge analysis and report. So they've got what's remaining on their plate, a couple more design deliverables as they progress the design from that 30% level up to 90% and then on to final design. And at each one of those stages, Avek gets an opportunity to review and comment on that design. As we worked on this and after completion of that 30% design package, that came with a new cost opinion for the project. If you recall from years ago, the AECOM estimate for the project was $27 million. After completion of the 30% design drawings and looking at the cost estimate had nearly doubled to $60 million or so. That was a little bit of sticker shock for staff. And so we were looking at ways to maybe optimize the project and do a little bit of value engineering. So we asked Stantec to do a couple of items that were outside of their original scope. One was to look at alternative pipeline materials to see if potentially doing a pipeline other than steel might be a little bit more cost effective while still meeting the needs. And then also to look at alternative pipeline sizing. The original concept was a 48-inch pipeline. So we thought maybe downsizing that to 30 or 36 inches might still meet the goals of the project while saving us some money. In addition to that, with the preliminary design report, operations and maintenance staff reviewed that as well as engineering staff. They noted that the plan, which was the plan all along from AECOM, did not included fixed speed pumps. So they could only pump 9 million gallons a day or 0. There was no range in between that they could operate. And all of AVEC's other facilities include what they call variable frequency drives, which allow those pumps to operate at different speeds and pump different flows of water through the pumps and help us to operationally meet the needs at the time. So they asked if we could incorporate VFDs into a couple of the pumps. And so Kennedy Jenks needed to look at that to see if the existing infrastructure that was built, as you know, there's already a large pump station building that was constructed as part of the original SNP project, and some electrical that's been built into that as well. So KJ had to analyze all of that infrastructure that was already there to see if we could support the inclusion of VFDs into the design. So they produced 3 technical memos that outlined their findings on all 3 of those items. Those items were, like I said, out of scope. So what staff allowed them to do is to borrow funds from their final design tasks in order to complete those items at that time. Additionally, as they worked through the design, they found a need to conduct 17 additional potholes. So when they do the potholing, they're going out and they're finding existing utilities along the alignment so that they can incorporate those into the design documents. That way, when a contractor looks at them, they know what they have to contend with, and we can design around those existing facilities. So that helps avoid any changes during construction and change orders as a result of that. So I mentioned all of those tasks were outside of their scope originally. We allowed them to move funds from one task to another in order to complete that. But now that that's done, we're looking to move forward into finalizing the design. We do need to backfill those funds that we reallocated to those other tasks. So on the screen, you can see the breakdown of what this amendment totals out to. In total, it's $124,030. The technical memos equate to about $35,000 worth of effort to do that. The additional 17 pothole locations was $33,500. And then they determined that they can incorporate VFDs into the design. That does require a little bit of extra effort for them in order to update their design drawings. And so that is an additional $56,000 worth of effort. So that's the way this amendment breaks down. It brings their new contract total to just under $745,000. And then just as a side note, we do have about $6.2 million in grant funding that we've received through various DWR programs. To date, that has funded about $408,000 worth of the design effort that KJ's done to date. So it's covered about 94% of our costs. It will also cover the remaining $340-ish thousand should this amendment be approved. If the amendment is approved, KJ can move full speed ahead to complete the final design by the 4th quarter of 2024. And as we continue to pursue grant funding, pretty soon we'll truly have a shovel-ready project. And as soon as grant funding comes through, we'll be ready to put the project out to bid and get a contractor on board. So the Water Projects Committee met several times on this item, and it was a really good exercise to go through all the questions that they had. But I think after those discussions, the Water Projects Committee and staff have a fairly strong recommendation to the board to approve this amendment with Kennedy Jenks tonight. Be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board? It's probably, I think it's justified, but in the future, let's get board approval before.
Yeah, I agree. Okay,
is there no further comments or questions? Okay, motion would be in order.
I will move on 8D1 I'll move on to 8D1.
Motion by Dr. Miller, second by Dr. Donato. Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller, Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then 8D2 is the consideration and possible action on solicitation of proposals for the West Administrative Building roof repair or replacement. And this is going to be our senior engineer, Robert.
All right, before Joe gets started,
Yeah.
just an introduction of Joe, because this is the first time Joe Roberts has presented to the board. So Joe is our senior engineer. He's been with the agency for about a year and a half. We keep him locked up in the back room doing all the detail work. So we're going to start letting him out every once in a while now.
Welcome.
Yeah. All right. So as Matt mentioned, we're looking into replacing the roof for the West Admin Building. Here's an aerial photo of the facility. And basically a little background, it was originally installed in 1975. The roof is original to the building. It's constructed of a metal that's called Titan Alloy A. It's a blend of zinc, copper, and titanium. We have wooden battens every 30 inches running vertically along the roof, and it's all installed over a plywood decking. Typically, this roof has a 40-year life expectancy. We have had numerous leaks over the years. Avek staff and hired contractors have worked to seal up as many of those leaks as we can, but those repairs that we've made are temporary and only reduce the amount of leaks. Currently, we have leaks in about 70% of the offices in that building. Here's a few videos of some of those leaks. The first is in the hallway between Teresa and John's office. Yeah. And the second is from a few years ago. It's down in the old lab downstairs. So what we've done is staff has worked with a reputable manufacturer to put together a set of plans and specifications to remove the old roof and replace it. Garland, the company we worked with, has a long history of manufacturing roofing systems that have been installed in the Antelope Valley. The work plan would be to remove the existing roof, inspect the plywood underneath, and replace anything with water damage. And then to also replace, there's 17 windows up where there's kind of a knee wall right here and then right there. And those intertie they intertie with the roof. So while we're up there replacing it, it's easiest to just swap them out and put new flashing around that so we prevent the leaks in that area. And then we would install a new metal roof that would be similar in color and style to this building. Project
Can you
schedule.
go back to that picture?
Sure.
Yeah, when I first saw that, I was wondering, well, I didn't see any step ladders so you could look out the window. I would have, if I'd have been around back then, I would have questioned that. Back then. I mean, what the heck?
You can see a few clouds if you look up at the right angle, but
Crazy.
Our plan for its schedule is to solicit public bids this March or into April, and then we would open those bids end of April, and construction would be summer and fall, so that way we have a new roof by next winter. Estimate for construction is between 500 and 700,000. We truly don't know until we get into the roof and find out how much plywood we actually need to replace. And that's about it. So basically the recommendation from staff and the Water Projects Committee is that we authorize the solicitation of bids for this.
Okay, I have a question. So you're gonna strip everything off the roofs down to whatever, and where they put some kind of, they do their roofing material, and then they're gonna match the same stuff we have here on this building?
Yes.
It's gonna be similar style and color.
Yeah, we got some, I mean, I can't even imagine how much money we spent to patch that thing.
Been ongoing for years.
Well, I've been on board over 30 years, and they've been patching since then. So, I think it's a good idea we go out to bid, and I think, it's about time. I mean, 40 years for a roof. Normal roof, anywhere is about 25 years. So.
That company, we've used it before.
We have not specifically that I know of. Have we not?
We've used them for roof repairs. Oh, okay, but not total construct, okay. Are they local?
They're out of Bakersfield, but I know they do quite a bit for the Air Force Base and all the aerospace industry around here. And then the roof we're looking at is what Rosemont School District uses as their standard roof. They won't accept anything else.
And just to clarify, Joe, Garland that we're talking about, they're a supplier, not a contractor.
Yeah, the contractor would have to buy.
So they supply the material. What we're putting out to bid is for construction.
Who's the contract?
That's what we're seeking approval to go out to bid.
Okay. So you did two investigations. One is gonna be the contractor, and the one is the material you guys have already.
Yeah, Joe has researched the material that's going to be spec'd out in the contract documents that we put out to bid.
Right.
So we're not saying they have to use Garland, but that's the standard. If they want to go with another supplier, they have to meet the Garland standard.
Correct.
Is that a good way to put it?
Have you contacted the school districts to?
Yeah, I actually took a tour of Rosemont Elementary with I don't remember his title, but he was in charge of maintenance for that building and all of their facilities, and he said it was the only roof they used. They haven't had any leaks or any problems with it.
How long is what's the longest roof?
I believe he told me over 30 years is their oldest one. Yeah.
Can you ask for a bonded roof, not necessarily a guaranteed roof, but a bonded roof? And the difference, guaranteed, that's usually done by the roofing company, where a bonded roof is like John's Mansville. You meet their standards and you can get a bond. It'll guarantee that building for X number of years. I'm not sure how many. So you always have somebody to come back to. Versus if you have a contractor, you don't necessarily have someone come back to.
Correct.
And I don't know about this roof system, but that's pretty common with a lot of roofs.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Yeah, it's something we can look into.
Yeah.
What is it, like a home warranty that's over a period of time?
Yeah, something like that. And you have somebody to go back to because roofing company may be long gone.
That's true.
So we're seeking approval from the board to go out to bid for this item.
So there's no money?
No money at this time. We're going to bring back the proposals probably in late April. We're hoping.
Well, I'll move on board order 8D2, and we go ahead and investigate and see what comes up.
Yeah.
We have a motion by Director Donato.
I'll second.
Second by Director Mercy. No further questions, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you much.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to you to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You know what?
he'll be back.
Wait, report. This is open to employees too. You don't have to be a stranger.
Good job, Joe.
And this is Tilden Kim. Yeah. I'll just add that I can work with staff in soliciting bids to include a proposed warranty bond, consistent with what President Lane has suggested. And it's a very good suggestion.
Okay. Sounds good.
Can you say that again? Thank you.
Oh, Tilden just mentioned that he's going to work with staff on language in the contract documents to include a warranty bond.
I like that idea.
Okay, thank you. That'll bring us to number 9, General Manager's Report.
All right. So this is really more of a staff report because I'm going to pass the buck on a lot of this stuff. So first, I'll have John Bozigan, our operations manager, come up. He's put together a few slides to highlight the recent annual shutdown and maintenance activity at the various water treatment plants. Oh, okay.
It looks like a screen.
It does. It does. That's the screen. Okay, so John didn't put this together. Angel put it together. That's why it looks good. Okay, so the first slide, well, first of all, you know, we do an annual maintenance shutdown every year. And we thought it'd be a good idea to report to the board, you know, what do we actually do annually during the shutdown? We had three major things we wanted to accomplish. One, you have to clean parts of the plant that are always submerged. You can't clean them during the year. So that's the main thing. We hired a subcontractor, ERS Industrial, to do that work. Second thing is we wanted to replace or repair the moss screens. Obviously, you can't put the plants in operation, so that was a big deal. The third thing is we have 24 20-inch filter effluent valves at the Quartz Hill plant. Well, they're submerged under about 15 feet of water, so you can't do that when the plant's running. So we've done 18 of them. We wanted to do the last 6 this year. And R&B Automation was tasked to do that work. So thankfully, we got all 3 of these jobs completed in the 2-week shutdown, and everything worked out really good. So the first slide, if you look here, Frank's right. This is we have 3 moss screens. And what does a moss screen do? It prevents solids and mostly a lot of moss and algae from entering the plant. That can really mess up the treatment process and plug up a lot of things. So we had international water screens, pull these screens, and rebuild all 3 of them while the plant was off. And if you'll notice, see how the sun is right behind the boom for this crane, directly behind. And that was timed perfectly by Doug Holmes, our assistant manager of operations. That's just the kind of attention to detail that you get here at AVEC. Holly, next slide, please. Okay, that is a 20-inch butterfly valve. And what they have to do is you have to lower this through this hatch. Once you get it down into the effluent channel, it's about 16 to 18 feet deep. They have a special cart that they have to roll it into position. And we have to do this with 6 old ones out and dispose of the old ones. They're not rebuildable. Next slide, Holly. Okay, this is a picture of, on the other side of this concrete wall, you have the filter. And you have this steel pipe that enters the bottom of the filter, exits to the effluent channel. And this valve will bolt onto this. Brand new valve will bolt onto here. There is some cutting and welding involved to get the old valve off and the new valve on. Holly, next slide, please. That's Brian from R&B. He has worked for AVEC for, I would say R&B has worked for AVEC for about 25 years, doing this kind of work, automation services, valve actuators, gearboxes, valve replacements. Great thing about R&B is they do a lot of work for Metropolitan, LADWP, SoCal Gas. They stock almost every valve size you can imagine. So other companies are telling you it's going to be 30 weeks to get a valve. They have a huge warehouse where they stock all these valves. So that's really been helpful to AVEC. What he's doing is the old valve was, it's a 40-year-old valve. So the valve stem is a certain size. Well, the new valves are different. So he had to they have an in-house machine shop, machine a special stainless steel coupler adapter, and then he has to weld it to the shaft that goes above onto the deck of the plant where the actuator is. So he's doing some welding there. Next slide, Holly. Okay, this is one of the original plant effluent pipes. You can see there's some elation, there's some rust happening. Got your new valve, bolted on here. It's the old with the new. It's like a guy wearing a ratty old suit with a new pair of shoes. It just doesn't look good. Next slide, Holly.
I got a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Those lumps that are on there, is that from the steel, or is that from
Steel.
dirt coming down?
No, it's the corrosion process happening in the steel.
Really?
And you would think, well, gee, you guys have this plant drain, let's pressure wash those things off of there. And you could, and then you'd end up with a bunch of holes in the pipe. So we don't touch them. But we have a plan. We have a plan, always a plan. So Holly, or next slide. Okay, this is one of the worst ones. You can see this valve has been in service for a year. That was replaced last year. And, you know, obviously the pipe doesn't look like it's in great shape. Next slide, Holly. Okay, this is the effluent channel. I think, go ahead,
Why
Frank.
can't they, when they put those in, why can't they rubber coat them or epoxy coat them so it doesn't have to do that?
Well, you know, the original 4 filters of this plant were what's called tar, hot dip tar wrapped. Those are in great shape, but you can't do that anymore. That's not NF 61 approved.
So what, you can't do it?
The state of California are, you know, we're trying to save the world, Frank. That's what we're trying to do at California. So, anyway, what they do is they fusion bond epoxy coat piping now. And that's great, but when it's submerged all the time, you know, the corrosion process is going to happen. The only way to avoid this is to make these out of stainless steel, which it's expensive, but 316 stainless steel is going to last pretty much forever. It's going to last longer than the plant. And that's kind of leads into our plan. Next slide, Holly. Okay, this is just a view. I think several of you looked at this when the plant was drained. This is the effluent channel. This water level's normally up to about here when the plant is running, but you can kind of see, looking from south to north, what the channel looks like. And then next slide, Holly. Oh yeah, you're gonna like this one. Okay, Gary, you're gonna love this. This is my technical drawing here. In the future, I'm gonna have Joe Roberts draw this stuff, so it looks a lot better. But okay, so how do you replace these pipes? You know, you've got a concrete wall, about a 12-inch thick concrete wall. You have the filter on this side of the wall, effluent channel on this side. Well, this is poured in place. This pipe was installed when they poured the concrete. So, I mean, you can't jackhammer it out and put a new pipe because you can't have the plant down for a month to do this, let the concrete set and so forth. So staff put our heads together. We worked with Joe and Justin, the engineering department, and maintenance and operations. We came up with a pretty good plan here. What we're gonna do, what we're gonna have done, this will be on the capital project list for next year, is they're gonna cut this pipe off about an inch past the concrete wall, leave about an inch sticking out. They're gonna take a stainless steel plate and they're going to water jet it. Now you don't torch or plasma cut things, you water jet everything. And the water jet will cut a perfect plate, perfect bolt holes, etc. And then they're going to mount this plate, they're gonna register it on the pipe so they get it centered. And they're gonna hammer drill it into the concrete. And on this plate is gonna be this is all stainless steel. It's gonna be a stainless steel flange welded to this plate. And then what they're gonna do is they're going to, in the shop, they're gonna make these spools. And they're all a little different length. So they took measurements while they were down there this year, so they can shop fabricate these spools. So you're gonna have a 20-inch stainless steel spool, flange on one end, flange on the other end. And when we drain the plant, within 2 weeks, they can probably do 5 or 6 of these a year. And they're just gonna do, like I said, cut the old ones out, register the new ones, bolt it on, and we'll be good to go.
Why can't you run a stainless steel sleeve in the old pipe?
Well, that is another method you could. What we're trying to do is we're looking at getting these things done quickly so we don't have to have the plant off for too long. That is a possibility, Frank, and it might even be a little bit cheaper, and we'll look at that. Our goal is to get these things replaced within the 2-week shutdown. Now, it's possible we can do the sleeve method, and maybe we only get 4 done a year.
Because you can buy the better material the material to put in as a sleeve that will not rust.
Right. Instead of replacing the whole thing with stainless steel, just use a stainless steel sleeve. That's something we'll look at. So we're going to look at cost and we're going to look at time. We're going to get this done in 2 weeks. And it'll be obviously next winter that we do it. But anyway, this is kind of and there's a concrete pedestal that the pipe is to support. So this is what we're looking at. So when you see those old pipes that are kind of rusting, just know, we're not good with that. We have a plan, and it's going to be a well thought out plan. And we'll certainly bring that to the board when we do our capital budget. Holly, next slide. This is, okay, so remember I said we have ERS, environmental, I forget what it stands for, the acronym. Anyway, they come in and they clean the plant every year. They have big vacuum trucks. They have all the equipment to enter confined spaces and do it. But there's clarifier effluent channel and the plant effluent channels, which you're looking at here. Our operators, they don't want to miss out on some of that fun. So we let them go down, we kind of tell them they're going to go down there. And they clean these channels for us. So they have some skin in the game. They can kind of see what their plant is all about, learn about it, and realize that, look, if you don't clean this plant annually, you're going to have water quality problems during the summer. And that's why we don't have water quality problems. That's why Jordan's water quality report bodes well for AVEC, because everybody does their job. We keep the plant clean and we keep it running efficiently. We have a great engineering staff and we have a great lab staff, and we all work as a team to make sure this happens. Next slide, Holly. And this is just another channel that you can see our operations staff is in there cleaning. Go ahead.
What is on that, like the left wall? They're concrete walls?
They're all concrete. Yeah, it's just staining. It's just staining from the coagulant that we use. But yeah. I think that might be, is there another one, Holly? Yeah, that was it. So anyway, just a report, kind of let you know what we do annually, and we'll do it again next winter. And you can expect on our capital project list to see some of these piping replacements so we can stay ahead of it. Happy to answer any questions.
These were put in 50 years ago?
The original ones were put in 1975, 76. Yeah. So there was 4, the plant was originally 4 filters. Then it got expanded to 12 filters. Then it got expanded to 24 filters. So 3 plant expansions. And then the 4th one was DBP, where we expanded from 65 to 90 MGD at Courtsville. So, yeah.
John, thank you. I don't think we've ever had a report in this detail, so appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
So I had a question. If you sleeve it, how much do you reduce the flow?
Well, and that's something. And that's a good point. That's something we would have to look at. You would have to get a pipe that would fit within the pipe. Right. And you had a 20-inch pipe, so you'd probably have to use an 18-inch pipe, which would be a standard size. We'd have to see if that is sufficient, because we have to be able to flow 90 MGD through 24 filters. So that would...
Titanium.
Pardon me?
What if you use titanium?
Boy, I think that'd be a hard pill to swallow, Frank. That'd be probably about 5 times the cost of stainless.
You couldn't even get it here. Somebody trying to take the truck.
Yeah, but yeah, that's something we would have to look at to make sure the hydraulic flow would be sufficient.
I noticed on those butterfly valves, it looks like they're reduced quite a bit from the actual size of the pipe.
They're 20-inch.
OD looks like it's 20-inch.
Yes, 20-inch pipe.
But inside, when you're looking at that, the butterfly valve itself,
yeah,
you see quite a bit of reduced flow.
Yeah, it's...
So, I mean, you got a 20-inch pipe, but you probably got I guess an 18-inch valve. Well, no, they're a 20-inch valve, right?
They're 20-inch valves. Yeah. But you bring up a good point. With a butterfly valve, it's not a full opening valve.
Right.
So when that valve is even full open, there's an obstruction.
Yep.
So you're right. We'd have to take that into account.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, and be happy to, anytime the board wants a tour of any of our facilities, we'd be happy to show you what we got.
Would galvanized work? Like
no. Galvanized would go away for sure.
Not with the alkalinity we got in our water.
Yeah, I think
Because the
same,
person has got, don't you have slow tanks, water tanks?
I got,
Huh?
oh, yeah.
yeah. We want something that's gonna outlast us.
I know.
Thanks, Sean. And continuation of my GM report. Next, we'll have Peter Thompson present on what was discussed with the State Water Project Committee last week. We went over several items that we thought would be useful for the whole board to hear that. So Pete put together a few slides and just going to go over that now.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Good evening, President Lane, directors. So the first thing we're going to go over is a presentation that Department of Water Resources gave on subsidence and its impacts along the aqueduct. They've noticed over the last probably decade that there's been impacts to the State Water Project in terms of like the water level is getting higher and higher on the liner. And that is because the ground level is dropping. And that's kind of what's indicated in that graphic there. It's kind of giving an example of what would occur in a 3-foot drop of subsidence. What that really means to the State Water Project when you have that subsidence is you go from being able to flow, let's say, 2,000 CFS in the channel down to 1,700 CFS in the channel. And so that's a decrease in total throughput on the State Water Project at that point, and it becomes a bottleneck. It also increases the cost of delivery because you no longer have the flexibility to move as much water during the cheap energy prices as you might have had in that area before. And then, of course, there's some reduction in reliability, and there's some increased operations and maintenance. And DWR has done a good job the last few years. What they've done is they've run the project up above its design level in order to make sure they got as many deliveries as possible, but they've had to put staff on making sure that they never overflowed the aqueduct itself. So, but it requires more attention to detail than it would if it was operating the way it was designed.
So where's this at?
It's a good question, and that leads right into my next slide. So, Holly. So this graphic right here shows the areas of the greatest subsidence. So those areas that are circled, and the coloring, if it's red, it's the most subsidence, and then yellow, slightly less, and then blue, it's okay. That's pretty much from if you went west of Fresno to the State Water Project, and then also around Kettleman City, down to Kettleman City. That area right there is the area that's impacted. There's a total, what I was reading through the report, there's about a total of 220 miles of impacted area, but about 40 miles of the aqueduct has significant subsidence that should be addressed. So what their modeling suggests is that by 2033, it could have a impact on their ability to deliver in wet years. Obviously, in dry years, there's not so much water. They can move it through even with the lower capacity. But in the really wet years, they would have a hard time delivering on those 60+% allocations.
My next question, then why do we need a tunnel? If you put more water through the tunnel, okay, and we can't get it delivered because we have to lower the level of the water being delivered. Something doesn't make sense.
Well, I think you're 100% agree with you, Director Donato. This is the highest, to me, this is a high priority.
Question because if the water level, we have to drop the water level because it causes more subsidence. The proposed tunnel is supposed to put more outlook to give us what our allocation is. It doesn't do any good.
Right.
I mean, does anybody bring that up at the meetings?
Yes. Yeah. And that speaks to the importance of fixing that bottleneck before it becomes a serious problem.
So what you're saying, and I agree with you, is that I need to fix this problem, forget the tunnel.
Well, I guess it.
What I'm saying is we need this first.
Yes.
before we have a tunnel. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree with that priority.
Gotta fix the downstream to receive the water
Right.
first before you can shoot it out.
Agreed. You have to have the pipeline to deliver the water. And that's why DWR is addressing this right now. They want to make sure that they get out ahead of it. They got some time before 2033 hits, before their modeling projects it'll make a serious impact. So they theorize a lot of this has to do with the groundwater pumping in that San Joaquin Valley, as well as the oil production out there. All those things cause subsidence. So it's not just subsiding around the aqueduct, it's throughout that San Joaquin Basin. And so they're going to be doing some more monitoring just to get a better idea of pinpoint the areas of subsidence, pinpoint the causes of it. And then in the short term, they're going to be raising the liners of the aqueduct to provide more freeboard so that they gain back that capacity that could be lost. Along with that,
where are they getting the money for that?
So the initial funds for doing the study came from the state's general budget. They're also looking at the fact that a lot of this occurs on shared facilities with the Central Valley Project. So they're going to look to the Bureau to cost share on that, on the correction to that. There's also they're looking into the possibility of like some of the companies that have caused the subsidence and potentially contributing to the recovery from that subsidence. So they're looking in a few different areas for funding.
So is it going to be the 27 state water contractors, or is it going to be the state of California at that bonding? It's going to be a bond. I mean, where are they going to get the money? They're broke. He's already broke up there. What, 60 billion in the hole? I mean, what I'm saying is these projects are talking about, the money's got to come from someone.
Correct. So I think it'll be, some of it in the short term will be cost shares between the state water project, the state budget as a whole. And
I'm bringing this up now so you keep an eye on it, because sooner or later, which is sooner, we need to put our foot down, because they got, look at this agency, $4 to $6 million hit on the tunnel, and this is going to be who knows what. And on top of it, they're going to cut our allocation during this time of construction, which means we're going to have to pump more groundwater to make it up. See, it's a formula. And the thing is that I just want to bring it to our management to keep an eye on this thing.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Very good points. And that's,
I mean, we're doing a good job with groundwater recharge. Are we doing a good enough job because of this thing here? Because I don't know when they're going to shut this, lower the amount of flow to raise the liner.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we can pay more attention to as they move through their design plans for addressing the subsidence. Make sure that they're targeting times of the year where it won't impact.
Well, you just said they're going to lower it. I mean, I believe that.
Yeah.
Okay, which means that the capacity coming through the aqueduct will be lower too, correct?
Correct.
So that means our allocation that we're going to receive, even on a good wet year, we might not get that.
The hope is.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Right.
But that could happen.
That could happen if they don't address this in the next 10 years. So the hope is that they go about it in a very methodical, well thought out way, where if we have a low allocation year, then they put in more, they do more of the liner work.
Well, somebody must have figured something out where you will be having this discussion.
Right. Well, and I'm happy to bring.
No, not you, but the people, the engineers and scientists that are up there making these decisions, passing this information down to you and then to us. But I can foresee nothing gets built in 6 months.
Right. So I'll definitely be keeping the board advised as they develop their 10-year plan.
That's scary right there.
So. Any other thoughts or questions on subsidence? This won't be the last time you're hearing about it. It will come back to the board.
No, go ahead, Lauren.
Didn't you say that, in committee, that they, had done environmental studies, or they're in the process of environmental studies as to why the subsidence is happening?
Yes.
So are they in,
They're in the process of
In the
that,
process.
and that's part of that increased monitoring.
and that's where they're gonna find out if it's oil
Water,
pumping, water pumping, everything drying up, and now we have water table.
That's gonna be.
So they'll hopefully get some answers from this study. Is that right?
that's,
And if they
yeah,
have to-
be able to pinpoint the cause so we can stop that.
Okay, thank you.
A lot of potential ramifications, so we just need to keep the board informed on that.
Understood. All right.
Any other questions on that? It's pretty interesting.
All right. Next slide, Holly. All right, just wanted to touch on the other meetings that were held on February 14th and 15th. So we did meet with DWR. They helped explain some of the effects of filling reservoirs on our statement of charges. So it's kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought deeply about this before, but there are times when reservoirs are drawn down, and when that water is delivered to a contractor, they pay the variable charge to deliver it. But then DWR comes back the next year and fills up that reservoir. So who gets charged for that? It isn't delivered to anyone. So they explained how they do it. They almost treat a full reservoir as a capital piece of infrastructure. So the expectation is that it's restored to its starting spot. And then that goes on the next year's water delivery fixed charges. So they gave a good example of like how that filling of those reservoirs show up on our charges the following year. It doesn't affect Avek very much because we don't have any upstream reservoirs that we draw from along the State Water Project, but it does affect Metropolitan, Castaic Lake, other agencies that deal with those reservoirs that are along the path of the State Water Project. We also hit on the operations that occurred through January and February of the State Water Project. There's been highly restrained pumping due to environmental regulations. In January and February, smelt restrictions and winter run salmon restrictions. January through February, the water cost of those restrictions was close to about 700,000 acre feet. So they're doing their best to work within the regulations and move that water, but it has been a tough year to do it because of the fish. There may be I'm hoping but I'm hoping that there might be a good silver lining story out of this that shows that those populations are rebounding, and that's why we're seeing more of the fish in the areas of the ponds, but that's yet to be determined. We did meet with the director of DWR, and we requested her assistance in putting some focus on resolving some longstanding accounting disputes that have shown up through the audits over the years. And so this year, they're going to put a focus on their accounting department, working with State Water Contractors, both State Water Contractors, Inc. and individual contractors to make sure that they get through those points of difference on the accounting. We also talked about the need for an energy roadmap. So you may have heard there was SB 1020 last year that accelerated DWR's requirement to go 100% green energy. That acceleration causes an acceleration of cost to DWR and consequently to the State Water Project. So what we've asked is that they consult the State Water Contractors group before they just go out and procure that green energy so that we can make sure that it's being done in a way that will reduce cost impacts as much as possible. And they've agreed to meet with state water contractors and keep that discussion going and make sure that we're in the loop on compliance with SB 1020. We also talked about an upcoming draft human health and safety policy for water during drought years. So those are the three topics we hit on with the director of DWR. We then met with Carl Stock, who's the new regional director for Bureau of Reclamation. And what we impressed upon him is that we really want some good collaboration. In the past, we have the Fed side has not been good at cost sharing with us or cooperating in a timely manner. So he committed to do that. We're looking for help when it comes to subsidence, voluntary agreements, the sites project, Sisk Dam, and the cooperative operations agreement. So we both operate pumps in the Delta, and we both have to meet those regulations, those fish regulations together. So there needs to be some good coordination for that. So it was a good meeting, and we're hoping that it proves true, that they will be good partners over the next few years with us. Next slide, Holly. And then in the board meeting, there was no board action items, but we did go over the priorities for the budget. And in general, we went into more detail on this at the committee meeting. But in general, the priorities revolve around protecting our water rights for the State Water Project, controlling costs with Department of Water Resource, and with legislation, things that come up out of legislation that impact us, and then improving the yield of the State Water Project. So those are the three core things that all their technical tasks revolve around. And there was general support for the tasks that they outlined. I did request that they do some focus on improving the information availability. So after the Wednesday meetings, being able to have some of those slideshows that I can better pass along that information to board members. I believe that they've done a pretty good job with using their science and their outreach money to good effect. But the other thing I wanted to caution me and another agency is that you want to make sure that you're watching those budgets, because you don't want to do science for science sake, and you don't want to do outreach for outreach sake. Those things should bring back yields. And so we agree that it's like going on a good path. We want to keep an eye on the returns we're getting from those investments. When it came to budget target talks, most of the board members requested that they focus on a flat to slight increase of the dues fund. Kern and Avek board members requested that, based on a comment from the CFO for State Water Contractors, that there was substantial reserve funds, that they look at reducing dues next year and tapping into those reserve funds. And so that was...
Glad to hear that.
Yeah. So that was how the review of the budget went. We'll be approving that budget in May, and happy to bring along more discussion of that as it materializes. Last slide, Holly. All right, so I have a good news and a bad news slide. So we did get a robust storm come through. That storm helped us get back to essentially what would be considered an average snowpack along the Sierras. So we're between, I think it's like 116 and 94% of the average for this time of the year. There's not a lot on the horizon in terms of storms over the next 10 days. So hopefully something materializes at the end of March and boosts us up a little bit more, but this may be it for us in terms of significant snowpack for riding out the year. So that's a good news. That should turn into increased allocation. The bad news is I already mentioned smelt, mentioned the winter run salmon. Now we have steelhead problems. There's an abundance of steelhead. That's a federally protected species that are in the pump areas that are significantly slowing down the pumps. And
Wait. They're planting, you said planting steelhead?
They're not planting. They're showing up near the pumps. They're federally.
Haven't they before?
They have before, but they're showing up in so much numbers that it's starting to encroach on what is called our take permit. There's only so many of them that we can draw into the pump area.
The steelhead will just slaughter the snow. They're very aggressive fish.
Yeah.
It's a lot more aggressive than salmon. So that's what the problem is.
Yeah. No, that definitely doesn't help the smelt.
The only place in the world they can buy endangered species at Albertsons for $3.99 a pound.
Fair enough. That's the regulation we're under right now is the steelhead regulation, and that's what's causing the slowdown of the pumps.
Yes.
And will impact it through the rest of March. And that concludes my report on the State Water Project meetings. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good report.
Yeah,
Any
good.
questions?
I had one question. Did you hear anything about that at the Iron Gates, that dam that had that big salmon, all them salmon that they lost?
Oh, I had heard about it, but I don't think that one directly was
800,000.
Yeah.
Fish.
Of the released, like.
What'd you hear?
Juveniles. I had just heard that there was some sort of issue like that occurred with the fish biologically. And
Yeah, it was an air mixture between the air and the water, and the fish went through it and ended up.
Yeah.
That didn't work real well. Now they're talking about taking that dam out, by the way.
Oh.
So, which probably is not a good idea for the farmers.
Probably not.
Good report, Pete. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, upcoming events. We have a Water Master meeting on March 27th at 10 o'clock here at Avek or on Zoom. Just a reminder that your Form 700s are due to Holly by April 2nd, if you haven't gotten those in. We plan on presenting a check to the AV Rural Museum at our next board meeting on the 26th. Just a reminder, that's the $25,000 donation that we made to the Yellow Valley Rural Museum. So that we'll have representatives at the next meeting. And then Holly's going to reach out to all the directors to schedule some tours of our facilities. I know it's been a while since you've all seen the various treatment plants and water banks. So we'll schedule a series of tours to see those facilities. So that'll be good. And then just a quick update. We did meet with the Public Information Committee a week or so ago, and we went through the Justin Lane Water Science Scholarship Endowment. So we had about $3,000 available to qualified. We had a total of 5 that met the criteria of the agency. We met with the committee and recommended issuing 3 $1,000 scholarships to the top 3 candidates that met both the GPA requirement and the course requirements. So we have the college has a meet and greet scheduled for April 19th. I think we're going to have a couple of the committee members go to that meet and greet to meet the students and see that presentation of the scholarship from the Justin Lane Water Science Scholarship Endowment. So just an update on that. And that's all I have today for the GM report. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Do you have any questions or comments?
Was there an advisory water?
Yeah, so it would be the Water Master Advisory Committee is going to be on the 20th.
With vacant land, people who want to build on vacant land. So it was really, it was an interesting weather day, but the plant is clean. So compared to 4 years ago, John, when I saw it originally, those screens were all gummed up with junk and the whole plant was running. So only a few of the pond areas were running because we're not running that much water through. But they were really impressed on our facilities, and they know just a little bit more about water in Antelope Valley. So thanks for helping make that happen.
No problem. Thank you.
Very good, Audrey. If there's nothing further, we'll move on to attorney's reports.
I have some report.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to say I attended the Aqua Conference in DC. As part of that, I was able to sit down with Congressman Garcia's office and talk with his legislative staff about introducing him to AVEC, but also talk about the importance of the SNP2 project. And they suggested we could look at their district-based project application process next year. They used to call them earmarks, you know, in terms of our needs for funding. So had good meetings with other water agencies and congressional staff from other offices. And overall, I think it was pretty productive.
Well, that would be very good. It's good contact.
And my report is we have the poppy fall coming up at the fairgrounds. So.
What's the date?
What was that date, get through on the?
Oh, it's the 24th, 25th, and 26th, I think.
Okay.
Whatever that Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
We're gonna have poppies this year?
We're crossing our fingers.
Okay, well, thank you. And move on to Chris for future agenda items. Okay. Then we're going to go into closed session, and we for all of these items.
Yeah, we do. We're going to meet on item B and C.
A, B, and C. Okay, so motion would be in order to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, Madam Secretary.
Audrey Miller, Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you all for attending and your input. We'll take a 5-minute break.
We have 5 minutes.
Yes. Whatever.